Hey there, Shaw viewers, and welcome to another edition of Mayor Ken's Council Report. Great to be with you today, and my goodness, if you can just see and appreciate the room and the premises that I'm in this morning, 4621 Ross Street. It's the McIntosh House. It's a splendid, wonderful historical resource for Red Deer, and it operates a lovely spa and coffee house here this morning. So. Solarzano Spa, it's called, and it's pretty exciting to be here this morning and joined by the very capable Dakota this morning, who's on their team, and Anna, of course. She's telling me she's been here for 6 years, so my goodness, it's such a treat to be here this morning. So let's get started.
A future site is now being recommended by City Council to the province of Alberta. Mayor Johnson, can you tell us a little bit about the next steps in the process?
Well, that's a great question, because it was part of the motion that council put forward last night. You know, when you think about our first site was unsuitable, and so we had to find, and of course we did have several sites in mind when we went to the province. So our next steps are right now, even as we speak today, we're writing our premier and asking the site be ratified. The province has the final authority on where the shelter site would be. They gave us as council the privilege of putting forward a site. So they need to ratify that now. Once that's ratified, and as we indicated not only in the notice of motion last night, but also in a public setting with the community, there's a private seller, or private owner, I should say, of the site. So we would have to enter negotiations with the private owner, but we need provincial ratification first. So first comes provincial ratification, then comes negotiations with the private owner. So okay. That's where it is today.
Awesome. And what would you like the community to know about the process that the council engaged in to reach that point?
Well, it's the reason why I need a spa today, because it's been tiring and exhausting. But our community is also tired and exhausted, but in a context of a search. So, you know, the process started with over 100 sites that council looked at, developed an evaluation, what we call a matrix, evaluation matrix, to be able to look at those sites, will the sites down to the top 3 to 5 or so. Presented one to the province. Obviously, we got feedback that it was unsuitable. Now we're presenting another. So it's been a long process, but in the end, and we've been reminded by citizens and of course provincial colleagues and internally, in the end, we keep our eyes on the prize, which is a sustainable site for all, one the city can be proud of, and one that's effective in getting people off to a new start if they need shelter.
That's awesome. So council supported the notice of motion to make Red Deer a leader in addictions recovery.
Yes.
Mayor Johnson, could you talk a little bit about your notice of motion and what are some actions that will be taken to move this forward?
Yeah, thank you. You know, the notice of motion came out of a government report called Toward an Alberta Model of Wellness, where the province of Alberta put a commission together to study addictions and recovery across the province and evaluate, are we being the best that we can be for people that are seeking recovery? And not, of course, when we speak of addictions, we mean the broader addictions, not just opioids or whatever, but of course alcohol, gambling, for example, across the spectrum of addictions. So the notice of motion elevates the hope of recovery. I hope it diminishes the stigma of recovery in speaking to people that battle addictions. Often the hardest part of starting recovery is the stigma of having a problem and admitting you've got some kind of a problem. But statistically, 1 in 5 of us is going to have an addiction in our lifetime, and about a third of us are going to have a mental illness or mental episode. These are normal. These are, you know, they're abnormal consequences, and I didn't mean it in that context. These are abnormal consequences, but we are all frail human beings, and we're subject, of course, to these kinds of illnesses. So my hope in the notice of motion is that we take the stigma down and we move recovery up. and we have the support systems across our community in education, in corrections, in enforcement, in health, and so on, to be able to say, when you walk in our door, a part of the conversation that we're pleased to have with you, privileged to have with you, is the opportunity to recover, the opportunity to get better, the opportunity to get well and get on with your life, reconstruct your relationships, and have the best life that you possibly can.
That's amazing. So council defeated an amendment to the community standard bylaw
Yes.
around shopping carts.
Yes.
What was the reasoning behind the move to defeat the amendment that would have seen impound fees charged?
Well, it became very apparent when administration brought us this bylaw in April that they were trying to achieve and doing a good job, a very good job of trying to achieve a balance between people that needed shopping carts for their belongings, and we see them from time to time in our city or in different parts of the city, people using shopping carts as a way of carrying their belongings through the city and so on. So there was a balance between that affected population, but also the balance between the businesses that were affected by theft of carts from their parking lots and cart depots and that kind of thing. So when we decided not to go ahead with the impound fee, we really arrived at a place where an impound fee would be an unfair assessment against a business. You know, the business has already been victimized, if you will, by the loss of the cart. And now, really, would we put an impound fee back on the business for being victimized the way that they were? So we have a system in place where we take the carts now and impound them, but return them. So there's no penalty for that, no fee for that. And to intervene in that particular process now was thought to be out of balance in penalizing a business. And so council didn't want to go there, and to administration's credit, after a lot of research, they didn't want to go there either. So they recommended that we defeat what's called second reading of that particular bylaw. So that's how that worked.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Council approved a $50,000 sponsorship for the 2022 Canadian Finals Rodeo.
Yes.
What do events such as these for Red Deer, and why did council choose to invest in this way?
Well, let's talk about the CFR particularly. So for the CFR, this will be our third go-round. And I kind of meant that in a sort of a cowboyish way. I'm hardly a cowboy. Look at me. I mean, really. But I just wanted to say the word go-round, you know, and that's kind of cool. So anyway, this is our third go-round, you know, with the CFR. It's very, very exciting, of course, because last year it was one of the first community events we did sort of post-COVID. So everybody was in a tremendous mood, and I hope that continues. So that particular event produces an economic impact in our city. Anywhere between the numbers that were given to us, just like $27 to $35 million. So, you know, we're drawing in that business, we're drawing in the hospitality sector, we're drawing in the restaurants, we're drawing in the fuel, for example, movie theaters and so on. You can imagine clothing stores, retail, spas, for example. I mean, if I'm sitting at the rodeo, why not get a spa or why not get a spa treatment? You know, those kinds of things. So that's the spin, the economic spin. But as an equal spin, I would argue, especially post-COVID, is the opportunity for us to get back to our cultural roots, and nothing you know reflects our cultural roots, I think, than a rodeo, especially a rodeo of this magnitude. This is the Canadian Finals, so you have the best competitors from across the country, and some from the United States, of course. So the level of competition is high, the skill level is high. So from both sides of it, culturally and economically, it was a bargain for us to be able to sponsor the event the way we did.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So was there anything else from yesterday's council meeting that you would like to mention to our viewers?
Yes, there is. And thank you, Dakota, for mentioning this. We are just a couple days away now from another annual powwow event in our city. So, you know, I spoke of cultural impact when I talked to the CFR. And I really would double down on the cultural impact when I think of what a powwow brings to our community. And the last one that I attended and the one before that, in 2021. They're getting more and more attendance from the community. More and more people are reaching in and discovering how the powwow educates us on Indigenous culture, how we can relate to Indigenous culture, how we can embrace what's valuable in that culture, and take it to edify ourselves. So I'm excited from that perspective. I would invite all of us folks this morning. The junior event, the youth event, if you will. I shouldn't say junior. The youth event is on Friday. So I'm sure many of our school kids will be there and so forth, and they'll bring those stories home. The main event, if you will, is Saturday and Sunday. It's down at the PV Mart Centrium. And I would just urge all of us to come down, spend a couple of hours, go through the markets, go through, see the dancing events, the drumming events, all those things. So please come to the powwow. And, if that's it for another time. So this is Mayor Ken signing out saying, I hope you keep well, and we look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.